Hello 2021, so long the awful, atrocious, ugly 2020. I hope the door hits ya on the way out. I mean that. 2021 should be a better year than 2020. I can make no promises though. You never know what's going to happen. We could see a repeat of 2020, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself right now. But nevertheless, I still am excited for this year, and a great way to open up this year is by talking about a year that was awful again. In all seriousness, I want to talk about my top 10 favorite movies that I watched for the first time in 2020, and that does not include any 2020 film. These are films that came out over the last several decades in cinema. I watch these films at home, on my laptop, on my Xbox, on my TV, on demand. I watch these movies in several different forms, and today I want to rank my top 10 favorites of the bunch, and here is my list for the films that I watched for the first time in 2020. If you want to look through the entire list, feel free to pause the video. I saw a good amount of movies over the last year, but you know what? I still don't feel satisfied. There are still a billion movies out there that I heard a lot of great things about that I still have not seen, so I need to watch more movies. But until then, this is a list I have for you guys for the new films that I watched this year. With that said, let's get right into my honorable mentions for the films in that watch list. Fargo, a dark comedy that subverts all expectations. Gangs of New York, Martin Scorsese's early 2000s epic where Daniel Day-Lewis shines as Bill the Butcher. A Beautiful Mind, light is shed on mental illnesses with Russell Crowe's sensational performance. Unforgiven, the last western of the classic western era. Babel, the importance of communication is touched upon with great care in this film. Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter and Buffalo Bill are truly terrifying. And Revolutionary Road, it depicts a once happy family going down a devastating path. My honorable mentions are now out of the way. Let's get right into my top 10 favorite movies that I watched for the first time in 2020.
Number 10.
Atonement is number 10. I reviewed this movie back in September, and this was a film that touched me on all different kinds of levels. I absolutely loved Atonement. This movie deserved all the Oscar nominations it was given back in 2008. It shows how childhood ignorance can ruin an adult's life. The film is directed wonderfully by Joe Wright. It's also creatively unique. The ending is heartbreaking, and I love both leads. James McAvoy and Keira Knightley give it their all.
Number 9.
The Pianist. I did not review this movie, but looking back, I probably should have, because this is one of the most realistic depictions of what it was like for Jews living during the Holocaust. We see just how horrible life was for one man in particular during this tragic time in human history. Adrian Brody's character is put through the ringer. The man can never catch a break. While watching The Pianist, I could put myself in the shoes of a Jewish man or woman living during the Holocaust, and the way this movie is executed is superb.
Number 8.
310 The Yuma. This was one of the last movies I reviewed in 2020, and rightfully so. It deserves a review. The film's finale is one of the best finales for any Western I've ever seen. I think this is just about as good of a Western as you could ever make. Both Russell Crowe and Christian Bale kill it on the screen. I cared so much about both of their characters. I love the dynamic between both of their characters on the screen. 310 The Yuma is a thrill ride from beginning to end, and I love this movie.
Number 7.
Unfortunately, back in 2018, I missed Hereditary in theaters, and now I know that was a huge mistake. I watched this movie for the first time the night before Halloween with my old neighbor, and I've never felt as creeped out while watching a movie than when I watched Hereditary. This movie is horrifying. Toni Collette is mesmerizing. The movie is really unsettling. There are so many moments where you feel like something is going to happen, but it never does, and that makes me feel even more scared. And the ending, let's just say I had a lot of trouble sleeping that night. Hereditary is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
Number 6.
The Perks of Being a Wallflower lands at number 6 on my list. I turned this movie on during the summer on a random day, and I could not believe just how good The Perks of Being a Wallflower turned out. The movie is all about finding yourself and trying to show you that it's okay to express your emotions. You don't have to hold everything in. And for high schoolers, this is a really difficult thing to do, especially if there are some things you don't want to reveal to other people. When I say the themes of this movie are worth listening to, I really mean it, and the leads are all perfect. Logan Lerman, definitely his best performance, as well as from Emma Watson, who also is great in the Harry Potter films, but in here, I think she's better. This is my favorite high school movie of all time now.
Number 5.
Good Time is number 5. When it comes to talking about the Safdie brothers' better movie, a lot of people always lean towards Uncut Gems, which I don't understand. Sure, Adam Sandler is great in that movie. He's different in that film than the other films that he's usually in. But Good Time is a far better movie in my opinion. This film kept me on edge from beginning to end. Robert Pattinson is fantastic as a lead. Everything that happens in the movie is so unexpected to the point where I could not believe it. The Safdie brothers are two up-and-coming talents, but they feel like seasoned veterans in the field already, though. Their movies are always heart-pounding. I can't watch one of their films without having a lot of anxiety.
Number 4.
So I watched The Terminator for the first time in 2020, and as expected, this movie lands in my top 10 list for first time watches this year. I mean, how could I not have The Terminator in this list? The action is so 80s, I love it, it's iconic. The two lead performances are exceptional from Linda Hamilton and Arnold. How could I not have The Terminator on this list after I watched it for the first time in 2020? It is just a necessary inclusion.
Number 3.
Misery is a film I saw for the first time last January, and looking back, I should have reviewed this one too because Kathy Bates gives one of the most horrifying, unsettling performances of all time. I am now terrified of the lovely, heartwarming Kathy Bates. All in all, Misery is one of those films where you're rooting so hard for the main character to get out of this messy situation to the point where you're throwing money on it. James Caan is screwed. He got in a car accident. Kathy Bates is pretending to take care of him, when in reality, she's just keeping him there captive at her house. When I watched Misery for the first time last January, there was not a single moment where I was not captivated. I was glued to the screen. I wanted to root for James Caan so badly, but I wasn't sure what was going to happen to his character. This movie is thrilling. It's everything you could ever hope for out of a film just like this.
Number 2.
Number 2 is Changeling. Now, I'll admit, going into this film, I thought it was going to be just okay. Yes, Clint Eastwood has directed great movies in the past, but he's also directed a bunch of bad movies. So, do you blame me for not having high expectations? Thankfully, though, this movie ended up being one of my all-time now favorite films. It is one of Clint Eastwood's most underrated films. My heart broke the entire time for Angelina Jolie's character. I wanted her to find her son so badly. The movie is gut-wrenching. It constantly caught me by surprise. I did not see anything coming that eventually came in the film, so I have to give them a ton of credit for making a movie that subverted all of my expectations. Changeling is one of the best films of the last 2 decades.
Number 1.
And at number 1, my favorite movie that I saw for the first time in 2020 just so happened to be Snowpiercer, a Bong Joon-ho movie starring Chris Evans that takes place entirely on a train. Snowpiercer is an action masterpiece. Chris Evans is better here than he's ever been in a film before. The world of this train amazed me. The character development is also incredible. There are some great surprises, especially at the end of this film. This movie blew me completely away. I did not think Bong Joon-ho could top Parasite, but he did. So yeah, Snowpiercer was the best movie I saw in 2020 for the first time, without a doubt. For a lot of people, Bong Joon-ho's best movie is Parasite, and while that was the case for me before I saw Snowpiercer, that's not the case anymore. Snowpiercer is now my favorite Bong Joon-ho movie, and it is my favorite movie that I saw for the first time in 2020. Very, very unique. I love this movie from beginning to end. It always caught me by surprise, and I had my full attention on the screen at all times. Alright guys, well there you have it. Those are my top 10 favorite movies that I saw for the first time in 2020. If you guys also have your list for your top 10 favorite movies that you saw for the first time this past year, well obviously you gotta let me down below in the comment section what that list is or what your thoughts are on my list, of course. I'm happy to kick off 2021 with a good video, guys. Let's keep the ball rolling. If you are new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.